The rain had just stopped when Amelia Hart drove her rental car along the winding country road. Vermont's green hills rolled endlessly around her, speckled with red barns and maple trees. The GPS had long since lost its signal, and she was following handwritten directions to a rented cabin at the edge of a small town. Her career, once glittering with Michelin stars, had collapsed under the weight of a public scandal, accusations of toxic leadership in her kitchen, and the relentless press coverage that followed. The city had suffocated her, each hunk of a taxi horn echoing her failures. She needed distance, quiet, and maybe a chance to remember why she loved food in the first place. When she finally pulled up to the cabin, nestled beside a stretch of farmland, she exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The wooden porch creaked under her boots as she stepped out, inhaling the fresh, earthy air. It smelled of rain, soil, and something sweet, like cut hay. From across the field, a figure emerged, a tall man carrying a basket of vegetables, his shirt damp with sweat and dirt smudged along his arms. He noticed her, pausing with a wary squint. "You lost?" he called out, voice steady, low. Amelia shook her head, brushing a strand of hair from her damp forehead. "No, I'm renting the cabin." He studied her, noting the city clothes, the perfectly clean boots that clearly hadn't seen mud. A faint smirk touched his lips. "Good luck. That place eats city folks alive." Amelia raised a brow. "And you'd be?" "Ethan. I run the farm next door." He lifted the basket slightly. "Your food, most likely." She crossed her arms, intrigued despite his dry tone. "Well, then I guess we'll be seeing each other a lot." He gave a small shrug, but his eyes lingered on her longer than necessary before he turned back toward the field. Amelia exhaled again, half annoyed, half curious. Maybe Vermont wouldn't just be a retreat. Maybe it would be a challenge. The first night in the cabin was quiet. Too quiet for Amelia. No sirens, no rumble of subways, no late-night chatter through thin apartment walls. Just the hum of crickets and the occasional owl. She tried to sleep, but found herself pacing instead, hands itching to chop, to stir, to create. By morning, she gave in. She slipped into jeans and a sweater, pulled her hair back, and decided to take a walk. A small wooden sign near the cabin pointed toward Miller's farm. Curiosity won. The path wound through tall grass until the farm spread out before her. Rows of corn, a chicken coop, and a small wooden barn. Ethan was already working, stacking crates of tomatoes with practiced ease. He didn't notice her right away. "Need help?" Amelia asked, stepping closer. He turned, startled for a second, before smirking. "City girl up before 10? Didn't think I'd see that." She rolled her eyes. Contrary to popular belief, chefs don't sleep in. We're usually up before dawn. Sure. Though the doubt lingered in his tone. He handed her a crate. "Here, prove it." The box was heavier than she expected, but Amelia gritted her teeth and carried it to the truck. Ethan watched her closely, half expecting her to quit after one trip. She didn't. By the third crate, he raised a brow. "Not bad," he admitted. "Don't sound so surprised," she shot back, dusting dirt off her hands. "Food doesn't start in a fancy kitchen. It starts here. I know that." Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe. He leaned against the truck, arms crossed. "So, what's a big-name chef hiding out in Vermont?" Amelia stiffened. She hated the word hiding. "I'm taking a break. Needed air, space." Ethan didn't press, though his eyes lingered on her as if he already knew there was more to the story. A rooster crowed nearby, breaking the silence. Amelia laughed softly. That's my first farm alarm clock. Definitely different from Manhattan traffic. Give it time, Ethan said, with a hint of amusement in his voice. You'll miss the noise. I doubt it. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of energy, not from the chaos of the city, but from the soil beneath her feet and the steady, grounding presence of the farmer in front of her. Ethan picked up another crate and glanced at her, struggling with her second one. Careful there. Those heirlooms bruise easy. Kind of like city people. Look tough, fall apart fast. Amelia shot him a glare, but kept walking. Says the guy who probably thinks seasoning means extra salt. That earned him a low chuckle from him. Fair point. I've seen your kind. Fancy restaurants where you stack food so high, folks leave hungry. Around here, we like to eat more than 3 asparagus spears. She laughed despite herself. Touché, but in my defense, you'd be amazed what I can do with 3 asparagus spears. Oh? Ethan leaned on the truck, smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. That's a promise or a threat? Her cheeks warmed, but she didn't look away. Guess you'll never know, farmer. Name's Ethan, he corrected, still smirking. Unless you prefer farmer. Has a nice ring. Farmer Ethan. Sounds strong, dependable, rugged. You forgot arrogant, she teased. It comes free with the flannel. He spread his arms theatrically, showing off his faded plaid shirt. Amelia shook her head, laughing harder than she meant to. She hadn't laughed like that in weeks, months maybe. Something about his easy boldness disarmed her. When the last crate was loaded, Ethan grabbed 2 ripe tomatoes from the stack, tossed one to her. Breakfast. She caught it, surprised. You just eat it like that? No olive oil, no salt? Straight from the vine, he said, biting into his. Juice ran down his thumb, and he licked it without shame. Better than anything you'd find in Manhattan. Go on, try it. Amelia hesitated, then bit into hers. The flavor exploded. Sweet, tangy, sun-warmed. She closed her eyes, savoring. Not bad, huh? Ethan asked, watching her a little too closely. She opened her eyes, grinning. Fine, you win this one. That's the best tomato I've ever had. He smirked. Careful, chef. Keep talking like that, and I might start thinking you respect the farmer's work. I do, she said, softer now. I always have. I just forgot for a while. Something shifted between them, just for a heartbeat, before Ethan ruined it with a crooked smile. Well, good to know you're not completely hopeless. Amelia rolled her eyes. You're insufferable. And yet, he said, tipping his cap at her. You're still standing here talking to me. She turned to leave before he saw her smile. That evening, Amelia stood in the cabin's small kitchen, staring at the groceries she'd hauled from town. Instant noodles, a box of crackers, and way too much coffee. It was survival food, not a real meal. She sighed, missing the professional kitchen she'd once commanded. A knock came at the door. When she opened it, Ethan was there, holding a basket of fresh produce. Zucchini, peppers, onions, a loaf of bread that looked homemade. You look like the type who'd buy Pop-Tarts for dinner, he said, handing her the basket. Thought I'd save you from yourself. Amelia raised a brow. Do you knock on all your neighbors' doors with vegetables? Only the ones who nearly passed out carrying a single crate, he shot back. She laughed, shaking her head. You're insufferable. You already said that. He leaned against her doorframe, grinning. But you keep feeding me reasons to stop by. She motioned him in. Fine, but if you're here, you're cooking with me. His eyes widened a little. Me? I don't cook. Perfect, she said, dragging him inside. I'll teach, you'll chop. Minutes later, Ethan stood at her counter, awkwardly holding a knife as Amelia demonstrated how to dice an onion. Like this, she said, her movements quick and precise. Ethan tried. The onion slipped, and his pieces came out uneven chunks. Well, he muttered, that's rustic style. She laughed, covering her mouth. Rustic is one word for it. You laugh, but these are artistic cuts. He popped one of the chunks in his mouth. And tasty, too. Rolling her eyes, she guided his hands with hers. Here, let me. For a moment, their fingers brushed. Ethan froze, glancing sideways at her. Amelia felt her chest tighten, the air suddenly heavier. She pulled her hand back, pretending to check the stove. So, he said casually, clearing his throat, do you always boss people around in the kitchen? Only when they hold a knife like it's a pitchfork, she teased, but her voice was softer now. Together, they sautéed the vegetables, laughter breaking up the silences. When the meal was done, simple stir-fried vegetables over bread, it smelled heavenly. Ethan took a bite, chewing slowly. Then he looked at her, serious for once. This is incredible. Better than anything I've eaten in years. She smiled faintly. Fresh ingredients deserve respect. His gaze lingered on her longer than she expected, steady and warm. Then, with a crooked grin, he added, guess I'll have to stop by with more vegetables, huh? Amelia laughed, but her heart skipped anyway. That evening, Amelia stood in the cabin's small kitchen, staring at the groceries she'd hauled from town. Instant noodles, a box of crackers, and way too much coffee. It was survival food, not a real meal. She sighed, missing the professional kitchen she'd once commanded. A knock came at the door. When she opened it, Ethan was there, holding a basket of fresh produce, zucchini, peppers, onions, a loaf of bread that looked homemade. You look like the type who'd buy Pop-Tarts for dinner, he said, handing her the basket. Thought I'd save you from yourself. Amelia raised a brow. Do you knock on all your neighbors' doors with vegetables? Only the ones who nearly passed out carrying a single crate, he shot back. She laughed, shaking her head. You're insufferable. You already said that. He leaned against her doorframe, grinning. But you keep feeding me reasons to stop by. She motioned him in. Fine, but if you're here, you're cooking with me. His eyes widened a little. Me? I don't cook. Perfect, she said, dragging him inside. I'll teach, you'll chop. Minutes later, Ethan stood at her counter, awkwardly holding a knife as Amelia demonstrated how to dice an onion. Like this, she said, her movements quick and precise. Ethan tried. The onion slipped and his pieces came out uneven chunks. Well, he muttered, that's rustic style. She laughed, covering her mouth. Rustic is one word for it. You laugh, but these are artistic cuts. He popped one of the chunks in his mouth. And tasty, too. Rolling her eyes, she guided his hands with hers. Here, let me... For a moment, their fingers brushed. Ethan froze, glancing sideways at her. Amelia felt her chest tighten, the air suddenly heavier. She pulled her hand back, pretending to check the stove. So, he said casually, clearing his throat, do you always boss people around in the kitchen? Only when they hold a knife like it's a pitchfork, she teased, but her voice was softer now. Together, they sautéed the vegetables, laughter breaking up the silences. When the meal was done, simple stir-fried vegetables over bread, it smelled heavenly. Ethan took a bite, chewing slowly. Then he looked at her, serious for once. "This is incredible. Better than anything I've eaten in years." She smiled faintly. Fresh ingredients deserve respect. His gaze lingered on her longer than she expected, steady and warm. Then, with a crooked grin, he added, "Guess I'll have to stop by with more vegetables, huh?" She laughed, but her heart skipped anyway. Ethan leaned back in his chair, balancing it on two legs while chewing another piece of bread. "You know," he said, mouth full, "I think I'm a natural chef. Rustic genius. Might even open a restaurant someday. Ethan's Farm to Fork." Amelia raised an eyebrow, stirring the vegetables. "Farm to fork disasters, maybe." "Harsh." He leaned forward suddenly, grabbing the salt shaker. "Fine, chef. How much of this stuff?" "Just a pinch," she started, but he tipped it over with a heavy hand and half the shaker emptied into the pan. Her jaw dropped. "Ethan!" He froze, looking at the mountain of salt. Rustic, right?" She groaned, reaching for the spoon to salvage it, but he blocked her with the spatula. No, we taste test. Could be revolutionary." She tried to wrestle the spatula away, but he was taller, stronger, holding it above her head with a grin. "Say please." Her cheeks burned. "Please," she muttered. Didn't sound convincing. He leaned closer, lowering the spatula just out of reach, his smirk daring. "Beg a little." Her eyes widened, and she shoved his shoulder. "You're impossible." The shove unbalanced him, the chair legs scraping, and he almost toppled into her. At the last second, his hand caught the counter, inches from her hip. For a moment, his face was close, his grin softer now. "Careful," he murmured. "You nearly knocked me into you." Amelia stepped back, flustered, pretending to focus on the pan. "Serves you right. Maybe you'll season with a lighter hand next time." He chuckled, grabbing a fork to sneak a taste of the vegetables anyway. She swatted at him with the spoon. "Hot," she warned. He blew dramatically on the forkful, then offered it toward her lips. "Ladies first." She blinked. "I can feed myself." "Maybe," he teased, nudging the fork closer. "But this is part of the full Ethan dining experience." Her stomach flipped, but she leaned forward and took the bite just to shut him up. Immediately, her eyes watered from the salt. She coughed, covering her mouth, while Ethan roared with laughter. "Oh, God," she wheezed, grabbing her water glass. "That's awful." "Awful," he agreed, grinning ear to ear. "But admit it, you'll never forget it." She gave him a glare that wasn't half as fierce as she intended, because she was smiling too. The night ended with them sitting at the small wooden table, the ruined pan between them, bread torn in messy chunks. The cabin was warm with lamplight, their laughter echoing against the old walls. And though Amelia told herself it was ridiculous, she couldn't shake the thought. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't mind having a neighbor like Ethan around. When the laughter finally ebbed, the only sound left was the soft ticking of the old clock above the mantel. Amelia tore another piece of bread, more for something to do with her hands than because she was hungry. Ethan leaned back in his chair, watching her with that easy, steady gaze of his. "You know," he said, voice quieter now, "it's strange." "What is?" He tilted his head like he was trying to puzzle it out himself. "Like, His lips curved, not quite into a smile. Like, I've known you a lot longer than a couple days. Like, he tilted his head back at her. Like you've been around forever somehow. Her breath caught, and for a second she forgot how to move. The warmth from the lamp seemed to crawl higher into her cheeks. She looked away quickly, tracing the rim of her glass with her fingertip. I was just thinking the same thing, she admitted softly, almost embarrassed by her own honesty. But that's silly, isn't it? We barely know each other. Ethan leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. His grin was back, but softer now, less teasing. Doesn't feel silly to me. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She tried to muster some witty retort, but the words tangled, and instead she busied herself stacking the crumbs on her plate like they were suddenly fascinating. Ethan chuckled low, seeing right through her. "You're flushed," he teased gently. "I am not." She shot him a glare, though her burning ears betrayed her. He leaned back again, giving her space, though his eyes never left her. "Fine, if you say so. But for the record," he reached for another chunk of bread, casual as anything, "I think the universe has a sense of humor. Dropping you here, right next door." Her chest tightened, a mess of nerves and something she didn't want to name. She forced a little laugh, shaking her head. "Maybe it's just bad luck." "Maybe," he smirked, raising his bread and a mock toast. "But I'll take it." Amelia didn't trust herself to answer, so she just clinked her glass against his and prayed he couldn't hear how fast her heart was racing. The next morning, Amelia found herself staring at her reflection in the small mirror by the cabin door. She'd thrown on jeans and a loose flannel over her tank top, more practical than her usual attire. But still, she caught herself fussing with her hair before heading out. When she reached the edge of Ethan's field, he was already there, tossing hay from the back of a truck with practiced ease. He spotted her and leaned on his pitchfork like it was a prop for his smirk. "Well, well, look who's up before noon." She rolled her eyes, walking toward him. "It's 9:30. On a farm, that's practically lunch." "I hate you," she muttered, though the corner of her mouth betrayed her. He grinned, handing her an extra pair of gloves. "Then come on, city girl. Let's see if you can handle feeding the cows without breaking a nail." She snatched the gloves from his hand. "I'll have you know, these hands have plated dishes for Michelin inspectors. I can handle a cow." "Good," he said, stepping closer, lowering his voice. "Because the cows bite." Her eyes widened. "They what?" He broke into a laugh so full and unrestrained that she shoved him in the chest, sending him stumbling back half a step. "You're such a jerk." "Guilty." He tipped his head at her, still chuckling. They worked side by side, tossing hay, filling water, Amelia grimacing every time mud tried to claim her boots. Ethan found her muttering under her breath hilarious. At one point, when she bent down to adjust a bucket, he leaned against the fence, watching her with an infuriating smirk. "Careful there. That cow's looking at you like she's about to ask for an autograph." Amelia stood quickly, brushing hair from her face. "You're enjoying this way too much." "Of course I am." He moved closer, his hand grazing hers as he took the bucket from her grip. "Never thought I'd see Amelia Cole, world-famous chef, arguing with a cow over breakfast." The casual touch, just the brush of his fingers, sent a spark through her, and she quickly looked away, hoping he hadn't noticed the way her breath hitched. But Ethan had noticed. Oh, he definitely had. He lingered a little too close as he set the bucket down, the smell of hay and sun-warmed skin wrapping around her. "You're a mess," he teased. She scoffed, though her voice wavered. "Takes one to know one." "Difference is," He leaned in just enough for her to feel the heat of him. Difference is, I look good doing it. Her face flamed and she shoved past him, muttering, "You're impossible." He followed with an easy grin, clearly entertained by how flustered she was. Amelia finally collapsed onto the wooden fence, tugging off one glove with her teeth. Okay, fine, farming is exhausting. Happy? Ethan leaned beside her, his arms resting casually on the rail, sweat glinting at his temple. He tilted his head just enough that their shoulders brushed. Not happy, satisfied. She shot him a look. You're insufferable. Been told that a few times, he said with a smirk. Now, humor me. What's a city girl like you doing all the way out here? Thought you were supposed to be some big shot chef in Boston. Amelia hesitated, fiddling with the glove in her lap. Was, past tense. That caught his attention. He shifted slightly, turning toward her. Was? I exhaled, eyes fixed on the field instead of him. I'm not a chef anymore. Walked away. Ethan studied her, brows lifting. You walked away? Who just quits being a chef? That's like quitting breathing. Her laugh was humorless. You've clearly never had a kitchen full of critics breathing down your neck, telling you you're only as good as your last plate. I loved food until I didn't, until every dish felt like a test I was already failing. The words slipped out faster than she meant, and she quickly glanced at him. Not that you needed my whole life story. But Ethan didn't tease, not right away. He just tilted his head, watching her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. Finally, he said, So you left all that behind for this? He gestured toward the wide open land. She shrugged, forcing a smile. Fresh air doesn't scream at me if the garnish isn't perfect. That made him chuckle, low and warm. Fair point. Then his grin returned, sly again. Still kind of sounds like you're hiding out. I am not hiding. Oh, you definitely are. He leaned closer, shoulder pressing into hers. Question is, from what? Or who? That's none of your business, she muttered, cheeks warming. His grin widened. So that's a no then? Nobody back home? No tragic love affair? You are impossible. And you're easy to read. His voice dropped, teasing but sure. You blush every time I get close. Makes it real hard not to keep doing it. Amelia shoved at his shoulder, laughing despite herself. You're the worst. Nah, he drawled, straightening with mock pride. I'm the best part of your day. You'll admit it eventually. Ethan watched her turn away, her cheeks still flushed, and for the first time, his teasing faded. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. All right, enough games. Amelia stiffened slightly, glancing at him, surprised by the change in his tone. I haven't exactly told anyone this, he began, his eyes dropping to the ground for a moment. But I didn't grow up on a farm because it was easy or peaceful. My dad, he was strict, really strict. Everything had to be perfect. Everything but me. She turned fully toward him, curiosity softening her expression. What do you mean? He leaned against the fence again, more relaxed, but heavier somehow, as if sharing a weight he'd carried alone for too long. I wanted to do things my own way, wanted to love the land, not just follow orders or a family tradition. Took me years to realize that farming isn't just work, it's freedom. And maybe I don't say it enough, but I'm proud of what I've built here, proud of who I've become. Amelia's voice was quieter now, touched. I think I understand, more than you know. Sometimes leaving something behind doesn't mean running away. It means choosing yourself. He looked at her then, really looked, and there was a gentleness in his gaze that made her heart skip. You're saying that for you too? She hesitated, swallowing hard. Yes. I walked away from the kitchen not because I failed, but because I needed to find something real, something I could actually breathe in. Ethan's hand found hers on the fence, thumb brushing lightly across her knuckles. You've got that now, and I'm glad it led you here. Her lips carved into a small, soft smile. And for a moment, the playful banter vanished. There was only the sun dipping low, the scent of earth and grass, and two people who were beginning to understand each other in ways words hadn't yet reached. I guess we're both chasing freedom, Amelia whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, we found a place that feels like home. The sun was warm, the farm buzzing softly with life. Chickens clucking, the faint rustle of leaves, and the occasional hum of bees. Amelia and Ethan moved around the orchard and small garden with easy familiarity, learning from each other in ways neither had expected. Here, Amelia said, showing him how to properly julienne carrots. Keep your fingers tucked, like this, safety first. He leaned over, his hands brushing hers as he mimicked her movements. You're very bossy, he said with a grin. Bossy? Maybe, but it works. She laughed, her eyes sparkling. See? Perfectly even strips. He glanced at her, a warmth creeping into his gaze. You make everything look effortless, even chopping vegetables. Amelia felt her cheeks flush. I've had practice. She tried to keep her attention on the cutting board, but his presence made her fingers tremble slightly. Later, as he showed her how to prune the apple trees, Amelia noticed how careful he was, the way his hands moved gently over the branches. She reached out, brushing a strand of sweat from his forehead. Whoa, he murmured, a slow smile spreading. That's unexpectedly nice. Amelia grinned back, tucking the damp hair behind his ear. You do this all the time for the trees. It's only fair I return the favor. He chuckled, leaning just a little closer. Fair, huh? I might start expecting this more often. The afternoon faded and the small gestures continued. He wiped sweat from her temple when she bent over the garden. She straightened the collar of his shirt when it twisted during a task. Every movement was intimate without words, a playful, tentative closeness that neither wanted to break. At one point, Amelia paused, watching him from behind a row of sunflowers. You know, she said softly, I feel like I've known you much longer than, 3 weeks? Ethan's chest rose with a slight laugh. Funny, I was just thinking the same thing. He glanced at her, catching her eyes before she quickly looked away, flushed. The orchard smelled of earth and fruit, the golden light making their shared space feel like a world apart. In that quiet bubble, their worlds collided, not as city and country, not as chef and farmer, but simply as two people learning to care for each other, moment by moment. Ethan leaned casually against the fence, eyes fixed on Amelia as she arranged the herbs she had just picked. So, tell me, he said, tilting his head, have you ever been with someone like this, out here, away from the chaos, just being? Amelia's hands froze mid-motion, and she felt heat creeping up her neck. Like someone on a farm? She asked nervously, trying to mask her fluster. Yeah, he said with a smirk. Stepping closer, the faint scent of earth clung to him, mixing with the subtle sweetness of the herbs, and it made her pulse spike. That's a loaded question. He leaned in a little closer, letting his gaze linger on her face. It doesn't have to be complicated, he said softly, brushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. The motion lingered and Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine. I want to know what's really behind those eyes. You don't strike me as someone who's been taken care of properly. Amelia froze, her cheeks burning crimson. Taken care of properly? What does that even mean? It means I don't think you've ever had a proper boyfriend, he said boldly, a teasing glint in his eyes. Someone who noticed every little thing about you. Someone who didn't let you hide behind your smile or your laugh. Her breath caught and she looked down, trying to hide the flutter in her chest. You're very bold, you know that. He grinned, stepping just a fraction closer, so that the heat of him brushed against her. Boldness comes naturally when something or someone intrigues me. And you, Amelia, you intrigue me a lot. She fumbled with the herbs in her hands, laughter and nerves tangled in her throat. You have no idea how dangerous that is, saying things like that. He chuckled, brushing a hand gently across her shoulder. Dangerous? Maybe. Exciting? Definitely. And I have a feeling you like it, even if you won't admit it. Amelia swallowed hard, her pulse hammering. Maybe I do, she whispered, unable to meet his gaze. Ethan tilted his head, letting his eyes roam over her flushed face with a spark of mischief. Good, because I plan to find out everything about you, whether you like it or not. The orchard around them seemed to shrink, the hum of insects and rustling leaves fading into the charged space between them. Every glance, every touch was heavy with unspoken promises, and Amelia knew, even if she didn't want to admit it, that she was completely undone. Ethan leaned casually against the fence, eyes fixed on Amelia as she arranged the herbs she had just picked. So tell me, he said, tilting his head, have you ever been with someone like this? Out here, away from the chaos, just being? Amelia's hands froze mid-motion, and she felt heat creeping up her neck. Like someone on a forum? She asked nervously, trying to mask her fluster. Yeah, he said with a smirk, stepping closer. The faint scent of earth clung to him, mixing with the subtle sweetness of the herbs, and it made her pulse spike. Or, I don't know, someone who makes your heart skip a beat. She laughed awkwardly, glancing away. That's a loaded question. He leaned in a little, letting his gaze linger on her face. Doesn't have to be complicated, he said softly, brushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. The motion lingered, and Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine. I want to know what's really behind those eyes. You don't strike me as someone who's been taken care of properly. Amelia froze, her cheeks burning crimson. Ta Taken care of properly? What does that even mean? It means I don't think you've ever had a proper boyfriend. Someone who noticed every little thing about you. Someone who didn't let you hide behind your smile or your laugh. Her breath caught, and she looked down, trying to hide the flutter in her chest. You're really bold, you know that. He grinned, stepping just a fraction closer so that the heat of him brushed against her. Boldness comes naturally when something or someone intrigues me. And you, Amelia, You intrigue me a lot. She fumbled with the herbs in her hands, laughter and nerves tangled in her throat. You have no idea how dangerous that is, saying things like that. He chuckled, brushing a hand gently across her shoulder. Dangerous? Maybe. Exciting? Definitely. And I have a feeling you like it, even if you won't admit it. Amelia swallowed hard, her pulse hammering. Maybe, maybe I do, she whispered, unable to meet his gaze. Ethan tilted his head, letting his eyes roam over her flushed face with a spark of mischief. Good, because I plan to find out everything about you, whether you like it or not. Ethan spread a blanket under the old oak tree, the afternoon sun filtering through its leaves and dappled patches. Around them, the orchard smelled of earth and fresh herbs, a gentle breeze ruffling the tops of the fruit trees. He had gathered whatever he could: ripe tomatoes, fresh basil, some golden peaches, a loaf of crusty bread, and laid it all out with a proud, boyish grin. Amelia crouched beside him, inspecting the spread. "Not bad," she said, smirking. "But you really expect me to eat this like it is? We need plates, knives. Presentation matters, Ethan." He laughed, shaking his head. "Plates are overrated. Nature is the plate, and the food tastes better if you're outdoors." Amelia rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. She grabbed a knife and started slicing the peaches, arranging them carefully on the bread. Even in this rustic setting, her chef instincts took over. "Fine, but we're not just shoving food into our mouths like animals. This is a meal." Ethan leaned back on his elbows, watching her work. "I'm more than happy to be your willing animal," he teased, eyes glinting, "but I'll need some guidance." She shot him a look over the knife. "Guidance, huh? That's convenient. You've never cooked a day in your life, and now suddenly you want a private cooking lesson." He shrugged, mock innocence on his face. "What can I say? I've decided to upgrade my skill set, and it's clearly going to involve a lot of taste testing." She laughed, shaking her head, and carefully placed a few tomato slices on a piece of bread. "Fine, but we're not just shoving food into our mouths like animals. This is a meal." Ethan leaned back on his elbows, watching her work. "I'm more than happy to be your willing animal," he teased, eyes glinting, "but I'll need some guidance." She shot him a look over the knife. "Guidance, huh? That's convenient. You've never cooked a day in your life, and now suddenly you want a private cooking lesson." He shrugged, mock innocence on his face. "What can I say? I've decided to upgrade my skill set, and it's clearly going to involve a lot of taste testing." She laughed, shaking her head, and carefully placed a few tomato slices on a piece of bread. "Fine, but we're not spilling wine on the blanket. You're paying for a new shirt." "Deal," he said with a grin. "But it might be worth it." His hand brushed against hers as he reached for the wine bottle, and Amelia felt a shiver run through her. They sat side by side on the blanket, sharing bites, sipping the red wine, and teasing each other. "You have a surprisingly sophisticated palate for a guy who thinks chopping wood counts as cooking," Amelia said, smiling. Ethan chuckled, popping a grape into his mouth. "I'll take that as a compliment. But don't forget, I grew up knowing which apples made the best cider." Amelia leaned a little closer, nudging in with her shoulder. "See, this is why I can't stay mad at you. You have all these hidden talents." He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "And you, Amelia, you make even a picnic feel like a feast fit for royalty. I think I might be falling for your dangerous skills." Amelia's cheeks flushed and she leaned back, pretending to be casual. Dangerous? Really? I'm just trying not to poison us with my culinary experiments. Poison? He laughed, tilting his head. I'll take my chances. Besides, his eyes softened, mischievous and warm at the same time. Besides, it's more fun being on the edge of danger with you. They clinked their wine glasses together, laughter mingling with the breeze, the soft rustle of the orchard, and the scent of ripe fruit. The playful tension between them was no longer subtle. It was a spark they both felt in every glance, every touch, every shared bite of the picnic Amelia had turned into something magical. The afternoon stretched lazily, filled with teasing, laughter, and the unspoken awareness that something deeper was beginning to grow, rooted in the earth beneath them, flavored with the wine and peaches, and laced with a delicious, undeniable attraction. The afternoon sun dipped lower, painting the fields with a golden glow. The wine had loosened Amelia's usual composure, her laughter coming in bursts, her movements more daring than before. She leaned closer to Ethan under the shade of the oak, the warmth of the bottle in her hand making her bold. "You're full of surprises, you know that." She slurred slightly, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I never thought farm life could be this interesting." He grinned, leaning back casually, but letting his hand brush against hers as she reached for a plate. "Oh, and here I thought city life had you spoiled." Amelia's laughter was soft and unsteady. She leaned even closer, letting her hair brush against his shoulder. "Maybe it has," she admitted, her voice low. "But something about this place, about you, it's different." He caught her gaze and held it, a bold smirk tugging at his lips. "Different good?" "Very different good," she whispered, closing the distance further. Her hands found their way to his chest, and she rested her forehead against him, feeling his heartbeat through the fabric of his shirt. Ethan's breath hitched slightly, his hand finding the curve of her waist, guiding her closer without hesitation. Amelia laughed softly, dizzy from the wine and the closeness. She moved so her knees straddled the blanket, her body pressing lightly against him. "I've been waiting for this," she admitted, her lips hovering over his. He tilted his head, eyes darkened with desire, and leaned in until their mouths met. The kiss was fiery, a collision of longing that had been building since the first day they met. Her hands tangled in his hair, his arms wrapped around her, grounding her as she let herself melt into the moment. The world around them, the fields, the sun, the distant sound of farm animals seemed to disappear. There was only this, the press of bodies, the taste of lips, and the heat of anticipation finally being unleashed. Amelia giggled breathlessly between kisses, her intoxication making her bolder, her flirtation more urgent. Ethan responded in kind, his hand sliding along her back, guiding her closer, the air around them charged with electricity. When they finally pulled back, gasping, Amelia rested her forehead against his, a lazy, satisfied grin on her face. "You're full of surprises, you know that?" murmured. Ethan chuckled, brushing a stray hair from her flushed face. "Only for people who deserve it." The wine, the sun, and the long day had set the stage for something neither of them could ignore. The picnic had been simple, the food humble, but in that moment, every stolen glance, every daring touch, and every heated laugh had transformed the afternoon into something neither Amelia nor Ethan would ever forget. The sky above the farm was a deep indigo, Stars scattered like tiny sparks of hope, and the crescent moon cast a gentle glow over the fields. Amelia and Ethan sat close together on the porch steps, still flushed from the afternoon's wine, the earlier fire between them simmering into a soft warmth. Amelia curled up slightly against him, her head resting near his shoulder. "I've never had a place like this," she admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "A place where it's quiet enough to just breathe." Ethan wrapped an arm around her, pulling her a little closer. "I know what you mean. The city never gives you that. Everything's a race, a noise, a performance. Out here, it's honest. You can just be." She let out a small, tired laugh, tilting her head to meet his eyes. "I guess that's why I screwed up so badly back there," she said, her fingers tracing the edge of the porch. "All the pressure, the expectations, the constant attention. I thought I could handle it. And then one mistake, one scandal, and suddenly everyone thinks they know me. And I hated it. I hated them and myself." Ethan's expression softened. He brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. "I get that," he said quietly. "People think they know everything about you, but they don't see the real person. Out here, you don't have to pretend. Not to me, not to anyone." Amelia's gaze dropped, her cheeks warming in the moonlight. "It feels freeing, being here, with you. I never thought someone could make me feel safe again." Ethan chuckled softly, his breath brushing her ear. "Save her? I was thinking more like irresistible," he teased, nudging her playfully. Amelia laughed despite herself, rolling her eyes. "Bold, aren't you?" she whispered, pressing closer, letting him feel the warmth of her body. "I'm honest," he said, leaning in slightly. "And if I'm honest, I feel like I've known you far longer than just a few days." Her eyes flicked to his, heart racing, and she looked away, flushed, tucking her hair behind her ear. I feel the same," she admitted softly, voice trembling. "But it's strange, isn't it?" "Not strange," Ethan murmured, his hand brushing hers. "Right. It makes sense somehow." The silence between them was no longer empty. It was charged with vulnerability and the thrill of the connection they had been building. The moonlight painted her skin silver, the stars sparkling like witnesses to their confession. For a moment, neither wanted to break the spell. Finally, Amelia exhaled, resting her forehead against his shoulder. "I'm glad I came here," she said quietly. "So am I," he whispered, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. "More than you'll ever know." And under the quiet light of the moon, with the soft hum of the farm around them, they shared a closeness deeper than words, a moment of truth, honesty, and a bond that neither distance nor fear could ever break. The morning sun cast golden light over the strawberry fields, the air heavy with sweetness and the soft hum of bees. Amelia crouched among the low bushes, laughing as she tried to dodge Ethan's playful teasing. "You're terrible at this," he said with a grin, holding up a small, slightly squished strawberry. "You're supposed to pick them gently, not crush them like, I don't know, some kind of fruit demolition expert." Amelia squinted at him, smirking despite herself. "And you're no master picker either. That one's completely ruined." She waved the berry in his direction, only for it to squish in her hand as she laughed, the juice staining her fingers. Ethan chuckled, stepping closer. "Looks like we're evenly matched then. Disaster team of the year." As she reached for another strawberry, she lost her footing on the soft soil, tumbling backward. Ethan instinctively lunged to catch her, but instead they both ended up collapsing into the greenery, bodies tangled and hands brushing. The proximity made their hearts race. The teasing laughter faded into breathless chuckles. Amelia blinked at him, cheeks burning, and Ethan's dark eyes locked onto hers. For a moment, the world shrank to just the two of them, the scent of strawberries mixing with the warmth between them. Before either could pull away, he leaned in and their lips met. The kiss was clumsy at first. Amelia's hair stuck to her cheek, a little dirt smudged on Ethan's arm. But it was sweet and honest, full of the laughter and joy that had built the moment. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Amelia rested her forehead against his chest, laughing softly. Well, that was unexpected. Ethan grinned, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Unexpected, yes, but I have a feeling it's exactly what we were supposed to do. They sat there for a moment, hands still entwined, the strawberry field around them glowing in the morning sun. The playful energy hadn't disappeared. It had evolved into something tender, something promising. And in that quiet, sweet chaos, they both realized that this kiss wasn't just about attraction. It was the start of something real, messy, and perfectly theirs. The sun hung low over the fields, painting everything in shades of gold. As Amelia and Ethan finished tidying the last of the harvest baskets, laughter from earlier still lingered in the air, but there was a subtle tension now, like the calm before a storm. Amelia's phone buzzed against her hip. She frowned slightly, glancing at the screen. "It's Chef Roland," she murmured, almost under her breath. Ethan noticed the change immediately. He stayed silent, leaning against a fence post, arms crossed. There was a tightening in his chest, a quiet fear he didn't voice. Amelia answered the call, her voice light but cautious. "Hello? Oh, Chef Roland. Hi. Yes, I'm doing well. Really? That's... wow." She paused, listening, biting her lip. "I see. So you're offering me to head back to the city, the restaurant group?" Her eyes flicked to Ethan, noticing the way his jaw clenched, the subtle tension in his posture. She cleared her throat. "Yes, thank you for thinking of me. I... I'll need some time to consider." She ended the call and slipped the phone into her pocket, her hands trembling slightly. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "Everything all right?" Amelia hesitated, looking down at her hands. "It's Chef Roland. He's offering me a position back in the city, a big opportunity. I didn't expect this." She stopped, glancing at him, seeing the shadow of worry in his eyes. Ethan turned toward the horizon, the cornfields swaying in the golden light. "I see," he said slowly. "That's exciting for you. I'll be honest, I hope you don't go." Amelia's heart skipped. She took a cautious step closer. "Ethan, I I don't know what I want yet. Part of me wants the city, the old life. But part of me..." She trailed off, her gaze dropping. Ethan stepped closer, reaching out and lightly brushing a strand of hair from her face. His voice softened, almost a whisper. "Then take your time. But know this, there's a place here for you, with me, and I won't pretend I don't want you to stay." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the field. Around them, the farm seemed to hold its breath. The rustling leaves, the distant call of a crow, the scent of earth and straw, all amplified the fragile tension between them. Amelia swallowed hard, torn between two worlds, the one she had left behind and the one she was starting to love. I I just need a moment, she whispered. Ethan nodded, his hand still lightly brushing hers. Take all the moments you need. I'll be here. The morning light broke gently over the fields, painting the horizon in gold and amber. Amelia stood on the porch, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, breathing in the scent of earth and citrus that seemed to define this place. It wasn't just the farm air, it was the calm, the belonging, the sense of wholeness she hadn't felt in years. Behind her, the phone sat heavy on the table. Roland's name glowed on the screen, waiting. She picked it up slowly, her reflection staring back at her for a moment, before she pressed call. Amelia, finally! I've been waited. Listen, this new campaign is everything you've worked for. I can... She closed her eyes, steadying her voice. Roland, I'm not coming back. A silence stretched, then incredulity. Not coming back? Amelia, this is your career, your life. You can't throw it away for some distraction. Her grip on the phone tightened, but her tone remained calm. It's not a distraction. For the first time, I feel like I'm living something that's mine, not built on headlines, not staged for an audience, just real. Roland's voice sharpened, but softened with resignation. You'll regret this. Maybe. But regret is still better than never knowing what it feels like to choose for myself. She ended the call before he could argue further. For a long moment, she stayed still, staring out at the endless stretch of fields. The world felt both vast and grounding, like it was finally letting her breathe. When she turned, Ethan was leaning on the garden gate, watching her quietly. He didn't speak, didn't press. He only waited, giving her the space to come to him on her own. She walked down the steps slowly, her bare feet sinking into the cool grass. When she reached him, she met his eyes, steady, kind, unflinching. She said, I told him no, I'm staying. Not because I have to, not because it's easier, but because this, she gestured to the land, the air, and finally to him. This is where my heart chose to be. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them carried everything words could not. Finally, Ethan's lips curved into the smallest, truest smile. He murmured, You have no idea how much I wanted to hear that. She exhaled, a breath that felt like the closing of one life and the opening of another. I think I do. He reached for her hand, and she let him. No promises of forever, no illusions of perfection, just the fragile, beautiful truth of two people choosing each other, here and now. Above them, the morning sun climbed higher, burning away the last trace of doubt. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of it, because whatever came next, she had chosen it with her whole heart. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and follow our upcoming videos to continue exploring new narratives.